You said no kiss goodbye. Screw you.
All right. All right. For Judging Judy. All right.
Hello and welcome to the Judging Judy podcast, the top comedy podcast that turns the tables on America's favorite, least favorite judge. Today's episode comes from all the way back on December 2nd, 1997. But before we jump into things, I just have some advice. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, but only if your aim is very precise. Now, to help remind us what was going on back when this episode originally aired in 1997, I brought in my friend, Professor Wikipedia, Doctorate in BBQ Sauce. WCW vs. NWO World Tour was released for the Nintendo 64. The wrestling game introduced a unique grappling system and featured over 20 playable characters. The game features a variety of weapons players can use to win their matches, including a steel chair, half a wooden folding table, a black baseball bat, and a barbed wire baseball bat. The game regrettably features no ability to agree to disagree. Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, the second single from the album Nimrod, was released by Green Day. The song, differing from the style of much of their previous music, became an unlikely hit for the band and is now a staple at proms, weddings, and other events, despite being written about an acrimonious breakup. I suppose you could say that the band's surprise was something unpredictable, but in the end, it was right. The MCI Center opened in Washington, D.C.'s Chinatown neighborhood with a game between the Washington Wizards and the Seattle Supersonics. Later to be renamed the Verizon Center and subsequently renamed the Capital One Arena, the arena can host over 20,000 fans for events like basketball, hockey, and concerts. The arena's, quote, urban revitalization resulted in the loss of much of the actual Asian American population in the capital's Chinatown, but you can now find Chinese characters mockingly adorning the signs for Starbucks and McDonald's, so I suppose everything turned out okay. Thanks for the help, Professor Wikipedia. Now, let's check in on the New York Times crossword puzzle for this day back in 1997. The clue for 5 down is flipper, and the answer is spatula. Finally, let's check in on the US box office for that day back in 1997. Number 3 was The Peacemaker, number 2 was The Devil's Advocate, and number 1 was Starship Troopers. Starring Keanu Reeves, Al Pacino, and Charlize Theron, The Devil's Advocate is about a young lawyer who takes a hotshot big law job, but soon realizes his boss is the devil. Something that really should have been obvious to him when he got into the legal profession. Keanu, best known perhaps for his role in 1986 TV movie Babes in Toyland, took the part in The Devil's Advocate in lieu of appearing in Speed 2, and agreed to a pay cut in order that Al Pacino could get the salary he wanted. A move that may have signaled that Al Pacino was method acting for his role as the titular devil. Let's get to the teaser for this week's episode.
She claims her ex-husband has been stalking her.
Stalking is such a harsh word. Can't we just call it assiduously following with bad intent?
He says she's denying him the right to see his son.
As a son myself, I've got to say, we're overrated. You don't need to see us. Seen one son? Seen them all.
Miss Herman refused to tell me where my son was attending summer camp.
Poor guy just wanted to see his son's star-making turn as tree number 3 in Camp Tiger Claw's performance of Into the Woods.
That was the wrong thing to do. And you didn't do it in your child's best interest. You did it because you're annoyed with him.
Newsflash, Judy, 90% of human interactions are either because someone is annoyed with someone else or because someone wants to annoy someone else. I wonder which category this podcast falls into. All right, let's get to the case. Our plaintiff Vicky is suing Lewis, despite the opener, now we're hearing he's her husband, not her ex. Anyway, they've been married 9 years. Vicky says she's been abused and harassed by Lewis, who is now identified as her ex-husband. Maybe the divorce went through sometime between announcer Jerry Bishop's first sentence and his subsequent second sentence. I will keep you updated if they remarry at any point in the episode.
Lewis says his ex-wife's allegations are totally false.
It would be a remarkably swift and unsatisfying case if he thought her allegations were totally true and that he owed her everything. Although, I wonder if anyone ever thought of a show like this. Both sides agree on the basic facts. They agree on the suggested punishment and take no umbrage with the judge for her ruling. You could call it speedy trial or 3-minute justice, quick court, the fast and the litigious. Actually, scratch that last one. I'll probably use that for a future episode of this podcast.
Miss Herman, you and Mr. Kaminer have been married for some time. You are no longer married.
We're still married.
Vicky grimaces like she's in a Pepto-Bismol commercial and just ate a whole plate of oysters before a job interview when she says this. But pay close attention. They are in fact married. Unless they got remarried in the last 60 seconds or so from when we last got an update on their status and found out they were exes. Vicky goes on to say that she's trying to divorce him, but as a wise Jedi once said, divorce or divorce not, try there is none.
The force is strong in this way.
Vicky and her off-again, on-again, off-again husband have one kid who they adopted about 6 years previously.
Miss Herman, I really don't know what you're suing for.
Whoa, is this an episode of Judge Judy or an episode of Law in the Fast Lane? No good. What about Justice at Warp Speed? Judge, jury, and executioner? I'll keep working on it.
Looks to me from your complaint that you're suing for bad marriage.
Okay, everything about how Judy says this suggests that you cannot, in fact, sue for bad marriage. But I don't know. Maybe you should get a consolation prize. Sorry your marriage didn't work out, but here's a limited edition Judge Judy plushie featuring the judge's own eyebrow hair so that when you furrow its brow at home, it's just like how she furrows her brow on TV.
Is it too realistic for you?
Judy says that Lewis is countersuing for $3,800, alleging that Vicky has been getting in the way of his visitation with his son. You know, you can't put a price tag on the time you spend with loved ones. But if you were to, $3,800 is a good start, especially if the one thing that would make you feel better about not spending time with your loved ones is a nice little trip to the Caribbean. Even though she seems disinclined to rule for either one of them, and in fact already seems frustrated with both of them, like they're especially pesky moles she keeps failing to whack, Judy invites them to try to explain their cases, with Vicky going first.
The harassment has been going on for a long time. Verbal harassment, physical harassment, physical abuse.
Vicky says she has the police reports and court papers to corroborate her allegations, but Judy doesn't want to see them yet. Judy first wants to hear the details. Vicky says the physical abuse started the prior year after Lewis brought their son back to her house after a visitation day.
Took my child out of the car, was carrying him in my arms, went through the gate, closed the gate, when Lewis turned around and said, I want to give him a kiss. Well, I was already inside the gate and the gate was closed. He pushed the gate open, grabbed a hold of my left arm, pulling me backwards with my child in the right arm.
Vicky says Lewis dragged her some 20 or 30 feet in this manner, all the while she was screaming. Only after she threatened to call the police, she says, did he stop. Still, she filed the report, especially as it happened in front of their kid. Lewis says that it started because the kid wanted a kiss, which, true or not, doesn't really justify allegedly pulling your wife 20 or 30 feet. But Judy silences him for the time being.
Miss Herman, you say the gate was closed, and according to you, your husband said, I want to kiss the child goodbye. And you just said to me, but I was already through the gate.
Yeah, at first I thought this was weird too. Like if she was through the gate, how did he manage to then pull her for 20 or 30 feet? But then I figured the gate was metaphorical. Like she didn't close an actual gate, but an emotional one between her and her soon-to-be ex-husband.
It's just a symbol.
Or she's a ghost. Now, I'm hoping she's not of the spirit realm, though, because the courts don't look kindly upon a man and ghost cohabitating. Vicky tries to explain that she didn't say anything to Lewis when he requested to kiss his son, that instead she kept on moving.
Yeah,
Well,
this
Miss
child was
Herman, that's
asleep.
wrong. Let me stop you right there. That's wrong.
Wrong, perhaps like a man and a zombie sharing a house and a home and a child. Wrong, even though love brought them together. Judy says it was wrong because she should have just let the kid kiss goodbye, that his request was neither onerous nor unreasonable. A gate, she says, can be opened just as easily as it can be closed. Or, as I suspect, one could just slip through it in their ethereal form.
Getting kind of spooky around here.
Judy says that in the moment, Vicky should not have been thinking about Lewis. She should have been thinking about what was right for her child.
You said no kiss goodbye. Screw you.
Total coincidence, these words happen to be the most frequently used phrase for lower back tattoos at independent tattoo parlors in Nashville from 2004 to 2013. Judy says that Vicky acted in this way not in her child's best interests, but solely to annoy Lewis. And though Judy loudly declares that this is wrong, she has a caveat.
that doesn't mean he should put his hands on you.
Which is the better alternate definition for caveat? A cavity-sized yacht or a yacht that causes tooth decay? Comment or email in at judgingjudypod@gmail.com. Judy caveats her caveat, though, by saying that Vicky instigated it. Two caveats walk into a bar. Bartender says, hey, let me see your IDs. The caveats, they nervously reply, sorry, but the bartender cuts them off. No ID, no beer, no exceptions. Saying that Vicky instigated the abuse, Judy says she's unsympathetic to Vicky's claims. Though Judy adds an additional caveat by saying that clearly Lewis isn't perfect.
You acknowledge that you had a long history of drug use, which means that I can understand why she was frustrated with you.
However, Judy again says that no matter how frustrated Vicky was with Lewis, she ought to have put her child first.
What a marvelous contradiction.
It's a little early in this episode to be drawing conclusions, to be learning lessons, but if I can take anything away from the first 4 minutes, it's that if you want to act with malice towards someone because they're a drug user, don't have a kid with them who wants a kiss.
Could have easily been resolved by you saying, want to kiss him goodbye? Kiss daddy goodbye. Doesn't cost anything.
Seemingly through with considering Vicky's physical abuse claims, Judy asks what else Vicky is suing for. Vicky says that she had to pay for a number of bills that the court ordered Lewis to pay for, but which he failed to cover.
I've never received any bills for that year, Your Honor.
Judy asks if Vicky even gave Lewis these bills, and she kind of gives an unsatisfying answer.
On some of the receipts that you have there on the back of the medication receipts, there's one that I put a date on and had given it to him.
Vicky says that at some point, there came to be no point in talking to Lewis, that she would give the bills to the attorney, deal with lots of back and forth, and then wait to go to court. All of which I can understand. And he might be lying. He might have gotten the bills from either her or from his attorney. I mean, he wouldn't be the first dad to not pay his fair share of the bills, right, Dad? In fact, right, Grandpa? It's kind of a family tradition. But anyway, if we can even entertain the idea that he never saw the bills, or that she was so frustrated by the inaction that she never provided receipts, then how can we expect for him to have paid them?
And do the impossible.
Anyway, we find out that some of the bills are for a therapist Jacob had been seeing at his school's recommendation to help work through some of what he had dealt with given his parents' situation.
Again, Lewis didn't pay the bill, which was for $400 to the previous counselor, who, of course, refused to continue seeing the child.
If you've been online in the past 6 years, you've heard of telehealth provider BetterHelp. Well, inspired by this testimony, I present to you No Help. Is your child dealing with trauma as a consequence of your bad decisions and bad parenting, and perhaps intergenerational trauma you inherited from your own parents? Do you not want to pay for your child to see a therapist to work through those problems? Consider No Help. By not paying $400, you can guarantee your child won't speak to a licensed, certified therapist at any time, day or night. And if at any time your child wants, for any reason, they can switch to not seeing any of our other therapists at no additional cost to you.
And the counselor told my son, you can't be seen because the bill's not paid.
It must have scared the hell out of the kid when the therapist said the first part of the sentence.
You can't be seen.
Like what? You can't see me? And why'd you put it in the passive voice? Why can't I be seen? How did I become invisible? Of course, once the therapist finished the sentence and said it was because of the outstanding balance, that must have helped calm the kid down a little bit, but still, just more trauma, you know?
Well, then your counselor should have his or her license revoked.
I won't be counting on Judy as an investor in No Help, but that's okay. I think I can find lots of people not interested in the health and well-being of America's children. I just have to find some congressional Republicans.
Follow the money.
I'd say it would be the
Well,
last.
then she's an idiot. Then you chose then you chose an idiot for counselor.
I too like calling people idiots, but this is an amazing way to deflect and find a way to still blame Vicky for this. Lewis didn't pay. Even if Vicky had found the Nobel laureate, downhill bobsledding, Olympic gold medal winning, Sudoku-solving child therapist every parent wants for their kids, Lewis still didn't pay his half.
Well, then why should he pay for a counselor that you picked that was an idiot?
Unless she specifically pulled up the yellow pages and found this therapist underneath the idiot counselor section. You know, the section right before the idiot dairy inspectors and right after idiot bricklayers. Unless she did that, I think Lewis should still pay. He never said, I didn't pay because she picked an idiot. Just look at the bricks in our misshapen patio. Just look at the spoiled milk. I won't pay for another idiot this lady chooses. Not again.
This was the counselor that the school recommended.
Well, then you chose the wrong school.
That was a perfect impression.
Judy takes all this in and says that she wants Vicky to stop viewing herself as a victim, that she has to get a hold of her life, that she has to start accepting responsibility. Sure. Like this guy should accept responsibility for half the bills for the idiot therapist, right?
Oh, well, no, not exactly.
We come back from a break where again Jerry Bishop says they're exes, with Judy explaining why she has been directing all of her ire at Vicky. And it's not because she mistakenly thought her name was Icky.
I haven't wanted it to appear as if I am going to be unfair to Mr. Kaminer when I now turn my attention to him.
A perfectly reasonable explanation for a clearly undiagnosed mania. Judy starts off hot. We learn that Lewis had been using drugs for some time, including when he married Vicky. But it was just weed. And this guy doesn't look like a stoner. He looks like Chris Christie's second cousin, Ricky. That's not to say he isn't despicable. I said he looked like Chris Christie, but it is to say I don't think he looks like some kind of raging addict.
What do you know?
There's some disagreement as to whether his drug use contributed to the end of the relationship, with Judy siding with Vicky's claim that it did.
I was in a drug rehab program for approximately 6 months prior to my wife filing divorce papers on me.
For weed. Today they give you weed at rehab. They give you weed instead of a personal pan pizza when you read 3 books in a month in elementary school. Lewis says he hasn't relapsed and that the court has a record of negative drug tests, though Vicky shakes her head when he says this. He says that any relapse happened only after he left rehab and after the divorce papers had been filed.
Hold on a minute.
6 months of rehab for weed. No wonder he couldn't afford his kid's therapist. Vicky gets the floor to offer her rebuttal. Is that inappropriate? Let me think of it. Vicky gets the floor to offer her rebuttal.
And the reason we separated is my son, who was 2.5 at the time, pulled out a very large bag of marijuana from under the front seat of his car and said, "Mom, what's this?"
Vicky mimes the bag, and it's about the size of Santa's sack right after he's taken off from the North Pole and well before any deliveries have been made. Now, I'm not saying Santa's a drug dealer or that he was Lewis's drug dealer specifically, but I bet Lewis could have paid those bills were it not for that milk and cookie budget, if you know what I mean. Vicky says she kicked Lewis out at that point, which is, I think, 4 years prior, and at that time he refused to go to rehab, which, wow, that means he predated Amy Winehouse's similar decision by about 13 years.
We failed her.
Right.
You did absolutely, positively the right thing.
I don't know that this means that Judy's going to award Vicky anything. I think it's just to move the whole thing along. She's placating her. Judy goes on to say to Lewis that Vicky had good reason to file for divorce, which, again, is all well and good, but not something you give someone money for. You don't get an award or a plaque, a medal, a ribbon for most deserved divorce. Sorry, Mom. Judy goes on to say that Vicky shouldn't have had to chase him for child support.
She's not, Your Honor. The district attorney's doing a really good job of that himself.
Except the medical bills. But Judy credits the DA for doing his or her job and moves on to assure Lewis that he's not blameless. I don't think at any point anyone was suggesting he was blameless. Even before we found out he was hoarding weed, I think everyone figured he bore some of the blame, like in any relationship. Judy, though, takes it even further.
It's probably all your fault that this marriage went south to begin with.
Now, I don't know if he deserves all of the... Oh, is that walk-on music? Is this an award? Wow, this is very heavy. Is this thing made of titanium? Who's paying for this? Am I supposed to be presenting him an award for 100% destroying his marriage? Okay, I guess I'll just stand over here while he gives his acceptance speech then.
If the Honor doesn't take into the fact that I did enter rehab, I did stop, I have negative drug testing, even to as much as 2 months ago when I got this job.
Worst acceptance speech ever. Plus, Judy blamed you for wrecking the marriage. The rehab and all of that happened afterward. Judy takes issue with this victory lap, considering he admitted to relapsing, though he says his relapse lasted just 1 day.
And nobody relapsed. Nobody's just a drug user for years, relapses for 1 day.
Judy says, "Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining." It's the title of one of her books, but it's actually slightly misleading advice. Contrary to what you might think, it's not free license to pee on her leg so long as you stay quiet afterwards. Trust me.
Trust him. He has his reasons.
The bottom line, the judge says, is that he's going to pay his share of the medical bills.
Bird, do me a favor, will you please, while I'm screaming and yelling at these people, would you sit down and try to figure out, I think it's this stack of bills. Go through this, and let's come up with a figure that's half of that.
Little known fact, in lieu of a gun in his holster, Bird has a TI-83 graphing calculator. Now that was a joke, but Judy then does hand him a calculator, though it's nothing fancy. He could definitely write boobs on it if you held it upside down, but nothing more.
You know what? That's more than enough. Thank you.
He really is much smarter than I am when it comes to numbers.
You say once, just once, that you know what a prime number is, and all of a sudden you've got to do the math every time Judy doesn't want to. And you have to do Judy's taxes. And there's some stuff in there that should definitely not qualify as a business expense. I thought this whole thing was a bit, and that they'd then kind of hand the bills off to an intern in the back, but Bird really is using the calculator, and he seems to be diligently calculating how much Lewis owes, so that Judy can focus on the judging. My word, not hers. Let's see if we can make it happen.
When you adopted this child, I assumed that you didn't adopt him for the purposes of making him miserable.
Perhaps not expressly for that purpose, but I think it's something every parent hopes to accomplish at some point along the way.
Otherwise, what's the point, right?
Bird, do me a favor, take that someplace else. It's making too much noise and I can't think.
When Judy got a bailiff, I assumed it wasn't for the purpose of making him miserable, but here we are. Judy says that in order for things to work for the sake of her son, to avoid making him miserable, Vicky has to do two things. We don't actually get to number two, but number one, she has to be satisfied that Lewis is not smoking weed anymore so that she'll be comfortable with visitation. However, perhaps intent on making the kid miserable, Vicky shakes her head no before explaining why that's a non-starter.
No, ma'am. He's been involved in heroin, cocaine, many drugs.
Judy says that random drug screening will fix that issue, without, of course, addressing who would facilitate or pay for that screening. Plus, Vicky says that they've gone down this road before. According to her, there was a court order requiring him to get tested.
Every time I would call him and ask him to drug test, he would claim he's out of
I don't
town.
think that you should have any control over that whatsoever.
That was a court order from the judge.
No, listen to me.
Now Judy's going to call the judge an idiot and say that Vicky is stupid for choosing that judge.
Quite frankly, I don't think that that's smart for a judge. I don't think that it's smart for a judge to say, you, madam, call up and tell him when you want him to go and give a urine sample, because that's too much control for you.
Hey, it was right. Well, half right. But hey, Judy's right. Where does a woman get off calling a man and telling him when to pee? This ain't Finland. This ain't democratic socialist Finland, where wives are always dialing up their husbands and telling them what to do with their bladders and when. We answer to three things in America: God, the Constitution, and those who exploit the vagaries of the previous two for the accumulation of their own power. Judy goes on to explain her version of what the court order should have said, were the original judge not some kind of Finnish imbecile straight out of the Helsinki city loony bin. But Vicky still looks unsatisfied. She won't be happy until she's got Lewis's bladder on speed dial. We come back from another break to talk more about visitation. Judy asks if, over his 20 or so visits, if the kid always came back okay.
He actually took Jacob at one point from a school without my knowledge.
Miss Herman!
No,
stop
Jacob's
being
not
a
always
victim.
It sounds like Vicky in this instance was in fact the victim. She probably thought her kid was kidnapped. Why is she getting yelled at for him taking the kid without her knowing?
Yell at me right now if you want.
Vicky survives Judy's cockamamie screeching to say that the kid isn't always returned okay.
He's always dirty. He's always hungry.
So?
He's not returned on time. There's no phone call to let me know that he's
That's
45
unacceptable,
minutes
Mr.
late.
Kaminoff.
Judy tells Lewis that this isn't acceptable. The kid can have lice. His stomach can be empty, but there is no excuse, none, zero, zilch, nada, for being late. Lewis, of course, denies this because even an admitted weed user and alleged heroin cocaine user would never, ever, ever return his filthy, starving child late. That's unconscionable. Judy says that if Vicky continues to make it unreasonable for her kid to see his dad, the kid will end up hating her or feeling bad about himself. Now, this is a common refrain from Judy in custody-adjacent cases like this one. So I'll say now what I've said before. Quit peeing on my leg, you pervert. No, I'm sorry. That's not the saying. I'm sorry. What I say is the kid's gonna hate her and himself anyway. That doesn't mean Vicky should do the wrong thing because it's a moot point. It only means that life is so onerous and impossible that no matter what a parent does, their kid will be miserable. The only way to avoid that is not to be some kind of magical perfect parent, because a perfect parent doesn't exist. The only way to avoid the kid hating her and hating himself is to not have kids at all.
That's the answer.
Having used all of his fingers and toes many, many times over, Bird comes back to say that Lewis's share of the medical bills is about $560. But beyond that,
I'm not awarding you anything, Mrs. Herman, with regard to this assault that you allege in 1996.
Lest you think this is the end of the case, we return back to Lewis's drug problems. Judy asks Vicky if she knew he had these problems when she married him.
Yes, which I had detoxed him at home through a counselor because he refused to go to rehab and I thought he was clean.
No wonder it didn't stick. Vicky is notoriously horrible at selecting therapists, whether for children or drug-addicted fiancés. She's like a metal detector for idiots. I just thought I'd say all of that preemptively before Judy can. Well, after about 28 years after, but you know what I mean. Vicky concedes that it may have been stupid, but she thought Lewis was clean. Judy guffaws at this, but that's only because she knows now that it didn't work. It's not like it was an unreasonable thing to believe at the time. Otherwise, there's no chance for anybody with any kind of rehabilitation. It's easy to laugh at it with the benefit of hindsight, but unless you have a dire view of humans and their ability to change, to grow, you have to allow that at the time, Vicky wasn't completely wrong to believe that Lewis may have beat his demons. Judy uses this occasion to remind Vicky that she chose Lewis, downplaying, if not completely disregarding the role Cupid and his arrows had to play.
Right now, he's not on drugs. I can tell. I have an eye.
Now she's underselling herself. She actually has two of them. Judy also says she can smell it, which brings into serious question her impartiality in this case, since, of course, she who smelt it dealt it. Now, all of this isn't just for Judy to brag about her senses, but to underscore a point that she's belaboring, about how if Lewis isn't on drugs, then he should continue to have visitation with the kid. She says, let Lewis disappoint the kid himself, which is the sorriest and yet most accurate description of parenting I can think of. Judy concludes our case. $565 for the medical bills goes to Vicky. She denies Lewis's counterclaim, which means that he's not getting that trip to the Caribbean.
That's the worst.
In her parting words, Vicky praises Judy without offering the same kind of adulation for her husband.
She doesn't know who this person really is, and he's just slime. You're a liar. It's a 1-year restraining order. You don't even know what you're talking about. You lie so much you don't know truth from fiction.
Now it's time for the most important part of the show. It's time for me to judge Judy. I follow an entirely imaginary set of rules to come to my decision, but it all boils down to this. Did Judy deliver justice? Justice to the people in her court? Justice to people at home? Justice to you and justice to me? If so, she's innocent. But if not, she's guilty. Now, 3 big things played into my decision today. Right off the bat, Judy said she didn't know why Vicky was suing. What she meant, however, was that she thought that Vicky didn't have a case. And throughout the episode, Judy showed an unwillingness to believe anything Vicky said. Maybe Vicky wasn't convincing, but maybe Judy couldn't be convinced. It all felt like Vicky was going up against something insurmountable that ultimately made me feel that if Judy didn't know why Vicky was there, she shouldn't have had Vicky there. Then we had Judy's tirade against the therapist. The therapist was an idiot. It was a bad choice, blah, 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 blah. Even when confronted with the fact that the therapist was the school's recommendation, Judy couldn't help but blame Vicky for it. And finally, Judy's insistence that Vicky take responsibility without leveling that same charge against Lewis. Sure, Vicky could have made better decisions, and some of her decisions resulted in outcomes she was responsible for. In the same vein, while she held Lewis financially responsible, she didn't berate him for his irresponsibility in paying his bills. She didn't chastise him for saying he hadn't gotten the bills. She didn't seek to make an object lesson out of his behavior, like she did with Vicky. And for those reasons, and probably more, today, Judy is guilty. That sound means it's time for Hangman, but this isn't the Hangman you played when you were a kid when you really ought to have been doing standing lunges. No, this is Hangman with stakes, and this week I'm putting human names for pets up on the gallows. Now, I'm not saying one way or the other whether it's a good thing that we've got cats, dogs, and lizards named Peter, Paul, and Mary. That is simply the world we live in, and if I win today, you can continue calling your dog Mr. Feeney for all I care. However, if I lose, pet names can no longer also be human names. Trade in your Ben, your Lucy, and your Fauci for Fuzzball, Mulch, and Snickerdoodle. As always, I'm using hangmanwords.com, and this week, I'm returning to their geography words list. Hangmanwords.com gives me 6 incorrect guesses. 6 letters that can be wrong before I lose the game. And yeah, this would be better on a visual medium. Now, today's answer, it's 2 words. The first one is 5 letters. The second is 4 letters. And as a reminder, it's geography. That's our word list. I'm going to start with a bit of a wild card here. I'm going to start with D. Okay, no D. Probably shouldn't have done that. 5 more incorrect guesses, and I still have, the 9 letters to guess. Let's go with S. A little more conventional, but not in the word. So now I have 4 more incorrect guesses, and I have no correct letters. All right, it's vowel time. Let's go with E. 2 E's, so it's blank E, blank, 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 space, blank, 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 E. I wonder if that could be lake. Let's try L. It is an L, and it probably is lake because it's the first letter of the second word. So let's go with A. All right. And now let's go with K. Okay, so I have the second word is lake, and I have blank E, blank, blank, blank. Let's see, let's try R. No R, so I have 3 more incorrect guesses. Lake. Let's try N. No N, so I have 2 more incorrect guesses. Whew. It's not Huron, because that's with Huron, and that would have been a lot of other words as well. Let's try O. There is an O. Blank E, blank, blank, O. Let's try M. It seems like I don't have a strategy. It's because I don't. There is no M, so I have 1 more letter that can be wrong. Let's see, think of lakes here. Lake Bell, Saved by the Bell, Taco Bell. Let's try T. There is a T, blank E, blank T-O. It's gonna be some lake in Mongolia or Chad, and I'm gonna feel bad for not having known it because I should be up on my Chadian and my Mongolian lakes. Wefto. Let's try P. There is a P. P-E blank T-O and then lake. Pecto, Pebto, Pecto, Pegto, Pito, Pecto. None of these letters feels really good here, so I don't think I've ever heard of this lake. Maybe I'm really dragging this out. It's definitely not Lake Bell. It's not Saved by the Bell. It's not Albert Bell, who used to play for the White Sox. I'm gonna just say G, Pegto. No, it was Peyto, P-E-Y-T-O-L-A-K-E. Let's see where Peyto Lake is. I say I get half points if it's in Mongolia or in the Republic of Chad. It is not, it's in Alberta, Canada. Darn. So that means that you have to stop calling your dogs, your cats, your lizards, your iguanas, your birds, salamanders, newts, bearded dragons, all of them. No more human names, just pet names. Duke, Guab, Spurb, Flab, Chimney. Chimney's a good name. Chimney's on the board. Anyways, sorry about that. With our last few moments, let's hear an out-of-context quote from Judge Judy. Put it up on a thumbtack near a radiator, and you too can have a hot lunch. That's it. Fornicate, subscribe, like, and share, but whatever you do, don't pick an idiot for your kid's therapist.